From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
Welcome back to another edition of Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Riddle. We continue to introduce you to cool people here at Fox 59. Thanks for downloading the Fox 59 Smart TV app on your Roku, Apple TV, or Fire TV. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of the conversations we have here on Fox 59 Tonight. Today, we're introducing you officially, because this episode's about him, because we've had him on the show before.
Yes.
But Max Lewis is our weekend anchor on CBS 4, so technically he shouldn't even be allowed on the Fox 59 Now app, but
Hey, I can step out if you want.
well, but I was gonna say, since we're all one family, hence the shirt,
That's right.
we'll let you in.
There you go.
Max, good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
You are, how long you been here now?
Oh, let's see. It was 21, so about 4 years.
4
Yep,
years,
4
okay.
years, a little over actually at this point. So I think
And before here, you were
I was in South Bend, Indiana,
at 57?
WSBT,
Okay.
CBS Fox station,
Mm-hmm.
like we are here. Mainly CBS though.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was there for 3 years. I started there in 2018, I think. Yep.
And
So
Ball State before
and
that.
Ball State before that. Graduated, let's see. I graduated there in 17, I think, and then my last semester there I did a study abroad semester
Oh, really?
in Spain.
Oh,
So my time at Ball State was kind of short,
okay.
actually. I was only probably on campus for 2.5 years, and then I did the final semester there.
I never realized that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So while you were at Ball State, what did you do? Newslink, any of that?
I did Newslink, which was our campus TV station and everything. And then I also wrote for the local student newspaper there.
The Daily.
The Daily, yes, Ball State Daily News,
Mhm.
and I actually really enjoyed that, because that's where I started. I started doing the newspaper thing,
Mhm.
and then sort of moved into TV a little bit. But I love the newspaper thing because the newspaper thing gives you sort of it gives you your roots
Mhm.
almost in
Mhm.
journalism and like sort of what you need to do and
Did you,
finding records, that kind of stuff.
well, did you want to do TV when is that what you went to Ball State for, first of all?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and I wanted to do TV, and I knew I wanted to do TV. I can't actually remember how I started doing the newspaper thing. I sort of did them in tandem, like both. But I was definitely heavily focused on the newspaper initially, and then migrated over to TV.
And so you didn't come down to WCRD at all?
I didn't.
Okay.
No radio.
See,
Although that's I sort of wish I did because radio is fun.
it is
I
fun.
think. I've been on radio shows and I think they're so fun.
Well,
You sit around like this.
yes, and you don't have to get dressed.
Right.
You
It
look like,
takes so much less work than
yes,
TV.
you can look like trash as long as your voice is good to go.
Right.
I was a news director down at WCRD.
That's right. I think I remember this.
And I was there at the time where which we were firmly against. I'm a little bit older than you,
Yeah.
but we were firmly against any what was called unified media at the time.
Oh.
Like when I came in, like it was WCRD and the Daily News
Everybody's separate.
and Newslink, everybody's separate. When I was there is when they merged everything and
Yeah.
we opened the new newsroom and everything.
Right.
And so still then like it's way more fun when everybody's competitors.
Right.
Because we're all trying to break the stories and
Right.
get the different scoops and stuff. And
Well, WCRD though is still sort of in its own
yes,
world. I feel like the other, Newslink and the newspaper and the magazine, which I can't remember the name of.
Ball Bearings.
Ball Bearings, yes. They're all in the room, but WCRD sort of still maintains its own independence.
Yes.
Just because it's in a different building.
Alleged David Letterman wanted it that way.
Oh.
Alleged. The stories go that he always.
Did he start radio?
Yeah. He helped launch CRD, and there's pictures, and so he's one of the big funders of WCRD.
Oh, I did not know this.
Yeah. So when I was there, I was news director, and we won regional news awards, a regional news excellence, and then a national news excellence award. But we were also college radio station of the year by MTV.
Oh,
And so
as in
Dave,
like music television.
music
Oh
television
wow.
still had, at least at the time, had this awards thing.
Okay.
And so we won college radio station of the year, and David Letterman talked about it on his show.
Oh no
So
way.
yeah, he gave a shout out to WCRD and Ball State, and he talked about this is where he started and everything. And
Yeah.
so we were at the station watching this, like David Letterman is talking about
About
us right
us,
now.
right?
Like,
Us little radio station here.
yes.
Yeah,
So that was really cool.
that is cool.
Um Ball State, good times.
It was.
Good times.
It was fun, and it's like that's where you learn. That's where I've learned everything that I've not everything, but
Well,
where you learn your basics.
well, you've
So,
done all right for yourself.
thank you.
Another Emmy this week. That was for your Delphi coverage.
Yes, these are my first Emmys.
This is your first Emmy.
Yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. My first so when I was in South Bend, they didn't really do Emmys.
Okay.
We didn't really not they. The station didn't submit for them, and so I just never did them. I probably could have gotten some there, I would think, but and then I'm like a 12th time loser since I've been here, except until last night.
Well,
so
congratulations on advancing out of the Susan
the
Lucci
Susan Lucci
club.
of
I'm still in it,
Emmys.
nominated.
Oh,
We didn't win last
no.
night, so I don't have any Emmys.
Have you ever won?
Nope.
Oh, how many times have you been nominated? Probably a lot.
Not as much, like because I also don't always put in for it.
Mm-hmm.
I have it pretty much every time I've put in, I get nominated, so that's cool.
Yeah.
But like one of the ones that I lost to was to Al Carl
Oh,
at Wish TV. It was during the riots of 2020.
Yeah.
I was reporting live on Channel 6 and he was on Channel 8, and he got the Emmy. I was like, he gave him an Emmy because he's the news director, and he went out and reported.
Right.
But okay.
Right.
All right, that's fine.
I'm not bitter about it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. And then this time it was for best newscast, which I was anchoring, was for the noon show.
Oh, okay.
So we got nominated.
Good. They're so subjective. I mean, they,
yeah,
and it's very much. I'm very honored to have won, and and when I'm nominated and stuff, that's always great. But it is so the way they judge them is so subjective. I think it depends on who it's in front of and how they're looking at it.
Was it for best newscast? I don't know. It was for something CBS
last
morning
night,
show.
Right?
Yeah. I forget which one it was, but it doesn't matter because it didn't win. But I was just nominated. So,
do they still give certificates if you're nominated?
Yes.
Okay.
I do have one or two of those.
I've never gotten them, so I don't know.
I guess you have to ask for one because, like, I did ask for my first one.
Yeah.
I did ask for that, so I do have a certificate for being nominated.
Maybe I should get. That's probably too late now.
Yeah, I mean it means something. Not everybody even gets nominated,
right?
So
I know there's no record of my nomination. Well, somewhere,
right?
But I have no record of it.
Somewhere there's got to be a record.
Yeah, exactly.
So you talked about how Ball State and the Daily News really helped shape you into being able to dig into documents and stuff, which I applaud and have a lot of respect for you when you do that, because that's not something that I do. Like, it seems like you wake up in the morning and you're like, let me check and see what public records have come out today, because we'll get an email from you bright and early in the morning with this new discovery. So it's a good tool.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of people don't realize, like, there's a lot you can find out so much about anybody, or whatever. Just, I mean, the amount of public records out there that are public, and people just, it does take work, and you got to know how to get them and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of information out there. But yeah, I do. Well, my biggest thing is I do a lot of court, stuff. And so I look every day, or most days that I'm working at least, or if I get a tip about something or whatever, then I go through and look, what cases did each prosecutor in each county file today, and I'll just sort of peruse through, and, normally most of them nobody cares about. But occasionally there'll be a charge that'll stand out,
Mhm.
like I remember a few weeks ago, I was looking through one and there was one about like, carrying a gun through a airport security checkpoint
Mhm.
charge or
Mhm.
whatever. But you don't see that every day.
Right.
So of course you click on that, see, oh, what is it? Oh, well, this guy did try to bring a gun through airport security, like
Mhm.
it's, it was in
Mhm.
1980 again.
Mhm.
So, just things like that. But yeah, I sort of really like it because it's like you almost are like, oh, I've discovered something that like nobody
Mhm.
else knows, and I'm
Mhm.
the only one that has it,
Well, you've got a couple
So
scoops.
yeah, we get some,
Mhm. Mhm.
we
Mhm.
try,
You also get
or we get scooped.
well, that happens
It
sometimes.
happens,
But
you know. We're all
I
trying.
it's not even in my brain. Like I look at when I get up, I look at a lot of the different websites. I read some trade magazines and
Hmm.
different things, Facebook groups, but I don't go into like court documents and different things like that. That's not even in my wheelhouse. I can read it, but
Right,
I don't. That's not where I go look for things. So
right.
you, that's what I'm like. So I don't know. I don't know if this is the right. I was talking to Jenny about this because like there's reporters, and then there are journalists, and then there are broadcasters.
Yeah, like
They
your level of involvement almost
Yes.
is, yeah,
Yes. Like
yeah,
me, well, right now I'm just a talk show host, but
yeah.
you're like a journalist to me. Like I think
Oh,
that term fits for you.
I would I consider myself a journalist. But there is sometimes, and I think that is kind of a distinction because there is sometimes that like on a day, on some day, I would say I'm not necessarily doing journalism,
Mhm.
if I'm, assigned to some story covering some, I don't know, a court hearing or
Mhm.
whatever. I'm obviously reporting on
You're
what's going
reporting.
on. I'm reporting,
Mhm.
but I'm not doing anything to,
Correct.
like, find something that nobody else,
Correct.
knows. I'm just relaying the information, I feel
Correct.
like. Whereas, yeah, journalism does seem to be more like finding
Digging.
something, digging, sort
Mhm.
of getting people to talk to you and sort of just getting something that nobody else it's
Mhm.
almost like getting something that nobody else can
Mhm.
get,
Mhm.
or they would have to do a lot of work to get what you got versus just the everyday reporting, which
Mhm.
is important
Mhm.
too, and that's,
Well, and everybody's the skill set's different. So, like, while I say
mhm,
journalists, and I think that's probably why more print reporters will say they're journalists and
yes.
things like that, versus a TV reporter. There are things that being a TV reporter requires
Mhm.
um, that a, you know what I'm trying to say, that a journalist wouldn't have to do as much. Like,
Yeah,
yes, with when you're reporting, you're pretty much taking the information that somebody told you and relaying it back,
right.
making it make
And
sense,
easy to understand.
easy to understand,
Right.
and you're delivering it. You are the messenger.
Correct.
And that's a skill too, because oftentimes you have to do that. I think okay, like I think that's the difference. Reporting is faster.
Mhm.
Reporting is this guy just told me this, this just happened.
Right.
Let me break this down for you. Whereas um, journalism is a little deeper dive. It's
Right.
slower. It's going to take some time. This isn't going to be today. So I think that's where
Yeah.
maybe like speed and oftentimes trying to probably convince somebody.
Yeah.
Because like if you're doing journalism, sometimes it's like, hey, this is here if you go get it.
Right.
Whereas versus your reporting, okay, look, I know something is right here. And I just need you to talk to me.
Right. Right.
Meet me over here. Explain this to me.
Right.
I think those are maybe some of the differences.
Yeah, and we don't do by that definition and that standard, we don't necessarily do as much journalism in television,
Correct.
as print reporters do. We just don't
Mhm.
have the benefit of time,
Mhm.
that they do. And so do, I think, serve different
Mhm.
purposes.
Absolutely.
But we do strive for that sometimes,
Mhm.
obviously, like we do things that sometimes I'll be working on a story
Mhm.
for, a few days, like just
Mhm.
trying to get all the right
Mhm.
pieces, trying to get stuff like that. Um, whereas, but most of our day obviously is
Go, go, go.
go, and the deadlines are creeping up behind you, and you got to go to whatever crime scene today or whatever it is. But that's a lot of what we do. But that's probably why I enjoyed doing the newspaper when I was at school, was that felt like I maybe got to do things that mattered a little bit more. Like I said, it's still reporting, and the day of stuff is still important for people. But the things that really affect change oftentimes are things that are not just happening, that
Right.
you don't just get, that you have to work on, and sort of that really make moves. Stuff like like what the Indie Star and the Mirror Indie have been doing with the Hogset thing. Like they've um, those text messages, which we talked about, last weekend or the weekend before. I mean, that's journalism.
Right.
Nobody else had that. They had that, and it's caused quite a stir. Like if nobody is reacting to what you're doing, then
Right.
it may
Well,
not
and
be
then in that sense, when we came in here and we all talked about it, we literally then talked as reporters. We were just relaying
right.
the information.
Exactly.
So
We didn't do any of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was their thing.
Yeah.
But again, that is there were, I'm sure, people who heard it for the first time from us,
Yeah.
and that's how they understood it. And
Right.
some people heard it from Mirror Indie, and the Star and all that.
Right.
So all of those are great. Like I said, it serves different purposes, different audiences.
For sure.
But you're really good at all that stuff, and I
Oh,
think
well, thank you.
that's a skill that not all of us have. And then there are a lot of people who can't sit and talk for a long time. They can't ad lib. They can't go live,
Right.
and
that's a skill
that's
too.
a skill.
Yeah, very much so.
So what is what is the Max Lewis dream? Because at once upon a time, I think my dream was to, and maybe it still is a little bit. If I ever got the chance to go do television in Los Angeles, I love LA.
Yeah.
That would be my city. Go work at KTLA or
Yeah.
something like that.
Right.
Maybe once upon a time I was like, I'm going to host Good Morning America or something.
Right.
I don't know that that's ever going to happen.
You never know.
But what's
Never
the
say
Max
never.
Lewis dream?
Oh gosh, my dream. Well, I think my dream, and I would feel like I really accomplished, is if I did work at if I was able to get a network, correspondent job.
Which, hey, technically, we did that. We both did that.
That's right. We were correspondents for the day,
For the
right?
day, for CBS News. Been there. Although I talked to Bob Donaldson about this the other day. All the contacts that he had made, because he got to anchor the CBS Evening News.
Right.
You did the CBS Evening News as a correspondent. I did CBS Mornings as a correspondent.
Right.
We were saying, well, all the people that we met don't even work there anymore.
Right. Probably not. I know. Well, yeah, because I mean, I've done it 2 times since I've been here at the station, and both times were when Nora O'Donnell was anchoring the newscasts, which obviously is not the case anymore. So yeah, I don't know if anybody would be there.
Yeah, all our connects are gone.
I know. Oh well, we'll find another way, right?
But I see that for you.
Yeah, I would. I just would love. I think I would love like the sort of just the traveling, and you're almost always on the big story, whatever it is, because if the network's going here, somewhere here in Indy, well, there's a big story here.
Right.
It may not be the biggest national story, but you're like sort of always on like a big story, which I think I would like. But and I just think the traveling and stuff would be cool. But sometimes I think, God, that would probably get very old after a while.
Well, I talked to some of the network correspondents when I worked in Phoenix. That was during the 26. No, that was after the 2016 campaign. Oh, was it? There must have been something that kept happening in Phoenix. I know John McCain passed, so we covered that.
Right.
But nevertheless, I kept being in the same spot with some of the network reporters, like Von Hilliard. Like I kept running into him, and so he was explaining like, so this is how our life goes, to where like we're here today, and we might get a call any minute and say, finish that up and head to
whatever
Vegas,
city,
whatever,
right,
and just go.
right.
And he's like, and he talked like, the way he talked about it is like they're kind of like living the same life as a truck driver or a pilot, to where they're gone for days and weeks at a time. They get this schedule where they're like, okay, on the third week of February, you are completely off. You are free. Go live your life.
Right.
And then they're like, but sometimes it has happened. Like you've been home for 3 days and then, a mass shooting.
They're
And
like,
it's like,
"Hey, can you
yeah,
help us?
yeah.
Can you
But
come
your flight's already booked. Head to the
in?"
airport.
Right. Yeah.
And so they talked about how tiring that can be as well, but because
Yeah.
the difference is that I noticed was like, so like we're attached to this community
Right.
and that we MC things and you go to the grocery store and people know who you are, but you also live here.
Right.
Whereas for them, they're not attached to any one place. They're just always going.
Right. And you can, yeah, like in this, this job, you can still have a life,
Right.
But yeah, I wonder about that because I feel like that I have a friend who is a producer at NBC,
Mm-hmm.
field producer,
Mm-hmm.
and she's just gone. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and going like in some random,
Mm-hmm.
just I mean, like I think last week she was in Minneapolis for the lawmakers that were
Mm-hmm.
shot there, and now she's, in Texas. It's just like we're so random.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember Phil Bremen,
Mm-hmm.
who was one of our professors, who was a correspondent for
NBC.
NBC, I believe at the time,
Mm-hmm.
told me that he always had a two bags packed,
Mm-hmm.
ready to go, cold weather bag and warm weather bag.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever he was going, which I think is the life. You sort of just have to
Mm-hmm.
leave at a moment's notice,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, and fly across the country or do whatever. So, but I think I would enjoy that at least for like I could do it for like a contract,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then if I didn't like it, then whatever.
What
So,
if you could pick a network? Well, which one would it be?
ooh, that's tough. That's tough. I would probably have to go with NBC.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big Lester Holt fan here,
Yeah, I know. Me
who
too.
just signed off as well.
Right. I think I really like what they do. I mean, I watch NBC Nightly News sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and I like I think they do a really good job of it, and it makes it, it's not slow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can't stand when things are slow
Slow. Mm-hmm.
moving. So
Mm-hmm.
they do a good job at that. ABC does too, but ABC almost is a little sometimes I feel like it's a little salacious sometimes.
Sensational.
A little sensational.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um which, it's fine,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But
They're getting ratings. People are watching.
I believe I think they're the top dog
Yes, it
anyways.
goes
So
back and forth between them and NBC, but it all can change now because there's new
right.
anchors.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I'm gonna have to lock in NBC.
NBC. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Do I know anybody at NBC? No, I don't.
Because I think cable do like, I guess you could do CNN or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, but that I feel like that's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the workload there has got to be worse.
Well,
I would think.
NBC also has MSNBC,
It's
so
true, but they're going through this weird thing where they're sort of splitting,
yes,
and
they're going to be
so
cousins instead of sisters, basically.
yeah, and so from what I've heard, I don't know. I don't know if they exactly know how that's going to affect um, workloads
Right.
and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's got streaming now too.
Correct.
The streaming.
For that
Here we
exactly.
are.
Hello.
It's like what everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm sure the work never stops. So,
What what would you like to cover as a network reporter?
ooh. I actually would love to cover the Supreme Court.
Really?
And we were talking about, I am very interested in court
Which that tracks.
things, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and just sort of following court stuff. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I just enjoy it. I enjoy sort of reading about the law and stuff because I've toyed with like, well, should I, go to law school and should I be you know,
Mm-hmm.
become an attorney and have that expertise, or whatever. So because I've always really been interested in courts and court documents and constitutional,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
issues, which is what the Supreme Court mostly works with. But and they're super. It people may not think it does, but I mean, it affects everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That literally affects people's daily lives sometimes.
So then
What's decided.
you would have liked Pete Williams at NBC.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
love Pete Williams.
I
Great. He's and his I was always amazed. Like he just was able to explain story, sometimes they're really
Mm-hmm.
complicated cases, and
Mm-hmm.
he just explained them so well, and his writing was always great. And I've modeled some of my stuff after,
Mm-hmm.
the way I just do my normal stories
Mm-hmm.
after him.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always notice he would just jump like right into it.
Mm-hmm.
None of this sort of
Fluff
fluffy
and build
crap
up.
at the yeah, none of
Mm-hmm.
that build up. He
Mm-hmm.
just like jumped right into it. And I've sort of I've always tried to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not always successful,
Mm-hmm.
but so yeah, Pete Williams is top notch.
I always admired him, especially when it'd be a special report with how fast he would get the information,
Hmm.
but also could do it at a pace where like let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Right.
Let's dissect this. We'll do it right here, and here's what it is. And instead of speculating, like it was
Right.
never here's what we think. It was no, this is what the possibilities are,
Right.
and now here's the fact.
And they used him all the time, and
Yes.
he was,
Yes.
so widely used. I'd also just do some general. I wouldn't mind just being a general person, but I'd want to be. I'd like you. I'd want to be on the West Coast. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. West Coast.
West Coast for sure.
That's my vibe.
Yeah.
Where
I
are you
agree.
actually from?
I'm from Shelbyville,
Aha.
Indiana. So just let's see, southeast
Mm-hmm.
of Indianapolis, down 74,
Yeah.
Shelby County. So
So are you? Let's see. We got Shelby Eastern, Shelbyville.
Shelbyville,
You're Shelbyville.
Shelbyville Central Schools
Shelbyville
or
Central.
whatever.
Okay.
But yes, Shelbyville High School
Okay.
Shelbyville High School grad.
Okay. See,
Proud
I
of
didn't know
it too.
that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm kind of local. I'm local.
Yeah, that's local. You're part of the. That is still a
I'm
donut.
in the
county.
metro area.
There's still a
so-
donut
Yeah,
county.
exactly.
Yes, it's
Yep.
just the one on the edge. It's fine. You're still in.
Exactly.
Okay, so NBC, West Coast.
Yeah.
I like that. That sounds like that'd be a good time.
I think it would be great. Work on the lots. Like,
Mhm.
I mean,
Oh,
because all the news bureaus
are on the studio lot.
on the studio
Yep.
lots with their corresponding parent company.
When I go to LA, so now I've been, and this is about you, we ain't supposed to talk about me, but I've gone to the Fox studio,
Oh yeah.
and that was because actually I kind of got that from working here. They're like, Fox affiliate. All right, come on.
Right.
Really, it was for the Fox owned stations.
Yeah.
But I got to go. They gave me a pass, and I got to go through the Fox store and
Oh, cool.
got to go look all around the lot, and it was free access. You're like,
Yeah.
see you.
That's 20th Century Fox, right?
Yes.
Is it the lot? They're
Yes.
on? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
CBS, I assume, is on Paramount.
Yep, that's up
Paramount
in
lot.
Studio City.
Yep.
Been to that one.
And then NBC's at
Universal.
Universal.
Mm-hmm. Then
Am I
you've got
missing? KTLA's on a studio lot too, but I don't know.
no
which-
KTLA is just downtown in Hollywood.
Oh, are they?
Mhm.
They're just.
Mm-hmm. KCBS is on the
Oh,
Studio City a
KCBS.
lot.
Yeah.
But then you also have the Paramount lot. The CBS lot and the Paramount lot are in two different places.
Oh,
And then KABC is on its own campus in Glendale,
not at Disney.
not at Disney.
Oh,
And then KNBC is at Universal.
right. Which I
and-
think is awesome. You could just like,
Yeah.
you could like take a golf cart and ride over to like some movie, whatever
Mhm.
the cool movie sets they have there
Mhm.
and stuff. I just think like working there, I'd be like,
Yeah. And all the people, the stars that you just
yeah,
like, that's Samuel L. Jackson. Just,
right. They're just in the coffee
Yeah.
shop on the lot.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
You're
Yeah.
all working together.
I
You work
know
at the
that
same
would be
place.
so cool. I think
That would be fun. And the weather's always nice for the most part.
it's true, except for fires and
Yeah. Earthquakes.
earthquakes,
Stuff like that.
mudslides. Maybe.
But
They
it
got
doesn't.
their fair share of stuff. Too.
And if you want snow, it snows up in the hills.
Right, you can go to the mountains.
Yes, you can choose to get into the snow.
Exactly. They have Lake Tahoe. Partially.
What I like about LA is that it's you have all of the elements. So you got the beach,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the valley.
Right.
You can go up in the what,
Sierra Nevada? Is it Sierra Nevada?
what do you call it? No, it's what's the mountains, but like
Canyons? Are they
no, because like LA is like the LA and the suburbs is in the valley, but you go up. I guess that's not quite the mountains. I have to think what I'm
like the hill, like
the hills.
it's like they call it, like yeah, I know what.
Yeah, I got to figure out what it's called, but because Glendale, California is on a hill,
Right.
and you look down into LA,
Right.
and I can't remember what what you call that. I mean, let's see.
It's where all the stars live.
I mean, I guess it's the lower part of the mountain.
Yeah.
So
It's still kind of the mountains.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I like and you can go to the desert.
Right.
You can go into the mountains, you can get snow, and it can be totally different. Like everything that you want.
Drive to Palm Springs.
Correct.
You're never far away from any. And I mean, up if you go Northern California, beautiful national parks. And I loved Northern California. I went to San Francisco a few years ago for the Colts game.
Okay.
And and it was it would have been, gosh, I don't even know, probably October or whatever. But I loved it. Like we went and saw like the redwood, some redwood trees, and then we drove down the Pacific Coast Highway, and went to Big Sur, and it was sort of raining and misty and super I don't know. Even the highways were beautiful because they were just surrounded by these beautiful trees, all over the place. And I don't know.
I've
It
never
was very
done
cool.
Northern California, but I've been to San Diego,
See, I've
LA.
never done Southern
Okay.
California,
Yes.
so we need to
Yeah.
swap.
Yes, we will. Gotta get some time off from this place though.
Yeah. Start there.
Which, by the way, we're like pretty kind of like over time because but it's okay.
Okay.
But you also have a show and whatnot to get ready for.
I know. Yes.
So before we go, what is people watching this like? All right, I like this Max Lewis. What's a Max Lewis story? Meaning, a Cameron story is anything with transportation, buses.
Right.
A Russ story is City Hall.
Right.
Police officers, Jesse's crime. What's a Max story?
Oh boy. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to go back to the courts thing. Like a Max story is like I probably an initial hearing. For someone got arrested for murder over the weekend, and they're gonna be in court on Monday morning or whatever.
Because that's usually a lot of times there's been several times where I've been coming out of the court doing the morning show.
Right.
And you're going in like, oh, I'm just going to go sit through this initial hearing.
Just going to check, listen, see what's going on. Yeah. So I, either that or I do love a good story with, like generally a crime story of some kind with some really good surveillance video. Anytime I love doing a caught on camera kind of story. Those are my favorite to write. And they're generally interesting and people want to watch them.
Well, all this now explains why you thrived so much in Delphi.
Yes. I love that. Was like such an experience to like see, because that was the first like full trial that I've sat through every single day. I've covered other things, but they were like sort of minor trial, like 3 days or something, and the person was guilty as whatever,
right?
But there's so many questions. This one, and it's a huge, expensive trial that has a lot of interest, a lot of skepticism, and I just learned so much about the judicial process doing it also. But it was a pain, to cover that trial, and the judge made it so.
Yes, she did not make it easy on anybody.
She could not have made it harder. Probably, I mean, she maybe could have. Like she could have done a few things to make it harder, but other than that, I think that is probably I bet that's the hardest I will ever encounter in terms of coverage issues.
Well, that and you weren't in big metropolis.
No.
You weren't in Indianapolis.
We ran out of places to eat lunch.
Yes.
There was nowhere to eat because there's, they have Pizza King and that's about it. There was a Chinese restaurant across the way, but that was it. I mean, in walking distance.
There's 2 gas stations.
Right. We couldn't stray far ever. And the other problem was like so much national media and everybody, and even us, like there's no hotels in Delphi.
Right.
Everybody, we all had to stay in Lafayette.
Yes.
And then, which is still a 30-minute drive, probably. So you had to drive 30 minutes every morning and every night, and it was the worst. The location she can't really control as much.
Correct.
But
she
could have. We could have moved the trial to Indianapolis.
That would have been doing you a favor.
Happy. Yeah, exactly. She was not doing us any favors.
Judge Goal, everybody. Judge Goal.
Yes. Look her up.
But you also got to see the network people who were there, and what did you think about because they weren't there every day.
opening statements, closing arguments, verdict. That's what they did. They had some producers sometimes come and say ABC was there every day,
Okay.
actually.
And I
A
think Court,
producer.
yeah. And I heard Court TV was there a lot.
Court TV, there's a couple ladies from Dateline that were there every single day. I was surprised CBS wasn't there
Well,
more.
they had you.
I guess, but they were there sort of intermittent, but they got 48 hours and stuff. But Dateline was like super fast with their episode. I mean, their episode came out not too long after the trial. So, but yeah, it was and the network people were awesome, I think, or at least the ones that I interacted with. I thought they were great, and that's what they do for their living. They
Right.
go around and cover trials, which I think could be fun. Maybe it might get a little old.
You get to see the country,
That's true.
and it's always something different.
But sometimes you're also seeing like the worst of
Yes.
I don't know, like, and it was a good experience and everything, but it's not a fun thing necessarily to
Right.
cover always, because I mean, hell, they showed really graphic crime scene photos in there, and I can't imagine looking. I mean, they were horrible, and so
But you saw them.
yes, and without warning, I might add, the prosecutor sort of accidentally put them up there. We were just like, oh my God. There was no warning of any kind, and the jury reacted the same way too. But yeah, so I've seen that kind of stuff, and just obviously seeing, in a murder trial, there's the family of the person, and they've lost a family member. Then you got the accused person and his family, or her family is there too, and this is the worst thing for them. Also, like, nobody wins.
Right.
Nobody ever wins, and so it's not necessarily a enjoyable, fun experience.
Is that a case that you think is done?
No. I mean, we're waiting on the appeal right now. That's sort of the next big thing, but I would imagine there's going to be some critiquing of Judge Gull's rulings, maybe just her handling of things, that kind of thing. I mean, she already got sort of reprimanded by the Supreme Court. That may be a little bit of a strong word, but she kicked the defense attorneys off the case, and the Supreme Court was like, "No, you cannot do that." But like, they were like, "What are you doing right now? We appointed you. We handpicked you because she has done a lot of high profile. She does almost all the murder cases up in Fort Wayne, and so she's like not a stranger to big cases, high profile cases. I don't know what set her off about this case, but something just was really weird about this case, and we had one court hearing on camera. I don't know if you remember that one. It was
I do.
super
It was
short.
short.
It was when she kicked him off.
Yes.
Because we didn't have the hearing, because the attorneys were kicked off. And so we had cameras in there, and she got really peeved off at us because we did something, I don't know. We started recording too soon or something. She was never clear. She never really told us what she did. And then she was just like, nope, no, never cameras again, and sort of like chastised us without, but didn't explain what we did. So she was not an enjoyable person to work with. Hope I don't end up in front of her at some point.
Well, we'll make sure that that case is moved to a different court.
Yeah, exactly. I'll raise some objection or something.
Like you said, there's the appeal process. There was so much with that case that we presented on TV that I thought created enough doubt that how could you convict this person if I can, like, I'm not a lawyer, but there were several ways that I could poke holes in this plot that doesn't necessarily say he didn't do it.
Right.
But I can poke big enough holes to say maybe he didn't.
Which is not the issue that you're tasked with. I mean, just because someone's not guilty doesn't mean they're innocent.
Correct.
Right. So, yeah, they have to prove that you are guilty of the crime, anyways. Yeah, there's so many questions about, well, because there's not a single shred of physical evidence that ties him to that crime scene.
Correct.
The other big thing is that the huge thing that sort of I feel like the whole case was pinned on was during when he was imprisoned before trial, and he had a psychotic break in prison for was banging his head against the wall and eating his feces and stuff. He made all these confessions over the phone, whatever, but the most important one was the one to his psychologist, Dr. Walla, who where he said, "Oh, I was going to, sexually assault the girls, but then a white van drove by and that spooked me, and so I took them across the river and killed them." That was so important because the guy who lives near the area drives a white van, and it says he was coming home around that time, around the time they think the girls were murdered that day. And I feel like that was a huge thing that this whole case sort of hinged on. Like that, because that's the one thing that almost puts him at that's
Right.
sort of hard to explain
Right.
a little bit. The problem is with that, I wondered, is that, okay, he was arrested, back in 22. Yeah. They didn't have any of that before when they arrested him. And I remember thinking the whole trial and just really the whole time, I'm like, what did you guys have when you arrested him? I mean, if you didn't have these confessions,
Right.
what would you be presenting to me in court? I mean, the confessions are damning. They're bad.
Yeah.
Even though they're not detailed. And there were good arguments, I think, made that this was someone who was just totally psychotic and saying these things, whether, they may not be true. But I was thinking that, I'm like, God, you guys have no case. You have no case without this thing. There's no DNA.
Well,
Nothing.
The bullet is where I was like,
And the bullet.
The bullet didn't do it for me.
Yeah, and I don't think the bullet really did. And actually, one of the jurors said in an interview afterwards that they almost completely discounted the bullet evidence because, and the big problem with that is the comparison was done between the bullet found at the crime scene was not fired out of a gun; it was just racked, and then. But the bullet that they used for the comparison at the state police lab was shot out of a gun. So how can you compare a bullet? Those are two very different things. Like, how could you compare those two and make a pronouncement that, yep, these are the same bullet? That whole science of tool mark analysis is sort of questionable anyways. I mean, there's been a lot of controversy over whether or not it should be used. And the FBI wrote a whole study, if you wanted to look at it, about how it's not extremely reliable. There's a lot of faults, but...
Well, it also never made sense to me that they said that he would have cocked the gun to scare the girls at the top of the hill.
Right.
And then said, down the hill.
Right. And then did it again. Or somehow the bullet ended up at their bodies.
How did the bullet get from the top of the hill, down the hill, I believe across a little bit of water?
Right.
And then somewhere near their bodies.
Right.
That doesn't add up at all.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is in the video that the girls took on their phone, they say the police contend that they heard one of them say gun, which I've listened to that video so many times to try to hear that. I do not hear that. Some people say they do hear that, but I don't know. There's just there's not a lot of certainty with the case, and I sort of think if you're gonna convict somebody and send them to prison for the rest of their life, you should definitely be sure. The jurors felt they were, and that's their decision. But I mean, the defense did not get a lot of breaks. I think that will come up in appeals. Like the sketches was a big thing. None of those sketches
look anything like
the two sketches that look nothing alike, but those were not allowed to be used.
Correct.
And it's like, because the defense is obviously trying to show like they have shifted people. They don't know who the hell did this. They are just trying to solve this crime because to say, hey, look what good job we did. That's the defense's argument. But
were you surprised?
I was a little surprised. I was a little surprised, especially because of how long deliberations took. I mean, we were there for 3.5 days for deliberations, and generally the thought is, or people say, if there's a lot of if deliberations take a while, that generally is not good for the prosecuting. Quick guilty verdicts generally quick, apparently. So I was a little surprised that they found him guilty. But also I wasn't totally surprised because, like I said, confessions were bad. There was no really explanation of this white van
Mm-hmm.
statement, or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. I was a little, I remember like I was just in such adrenaline pumping
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even remember what was going on. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just like trying to listen. Okay, what's the verdict? Blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
So,
But you were in that was your element.
yeah, it was good. And I had to claw my way in there
Mm-hmm.
too. We didn't have a seat, the whole way the seating was done. There were certain a lot of media seats, and we all but amongst ourselves worked out the schedule, and I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
on it the day that the verdict came in. So I had to like push my way in
Mm-hmm.
there, and I was sitting in the very back. Yeah,
But you were
so
there
but I was there. We got the news,
for
so
your
that's what matters, right?
your legendary run
Run
from the
up to
court.
yeah. Hey, got me an Emmy.
Yes, it
So
did.
there you go.
Yes, it did. So that I know that goes back. That goes back to the appeal is when.
So his attorney, they sort of pushed it back a little bit. They're probably, I assume it'll probably be later this year.
Okay.
I think they haven't even filed an official. They filed notice of an appeal
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to appeal, but the actual like spelling out this is wrong and this is wrong and this should be corrected and all that kind of stuff that hasn't happened yet.
So, and once they file that doesn't mean that there will be a trial or another trial
No,
yet.
I believe the process is the appeals court will look at it. They could set oral arguments where
Mm-hmm.
they actually argue about it,
Mm-hmm.
or they could just do the briefs. The attorney general's office, I believe, is the one tasked with defending the state.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll file their own brief of
Mm-hmm.
like, no, here's why the conviction should stand, yada yada yada, and the appeals court could just issue their ruling based on that. They could hear arguments on something. There's a lot of things they could do.
That would all be interesting
Yes.
to go through that again. Even the attorney general part, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, because there's a lot of from what I've heard, at least what people will tell me, they may not say it publicly, but
Mm-hmm.
people will tell me, is that there are a lot of questions with this case.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of questions about the judge's handling of it, but just even the basic like evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and the lack thereof of really hard, true evidence. The eyewitnesses in the
Mm-hmm.
case are a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody saw something. That case is a perfect example of why eyewitness testimony is crap
Mm-hmm.
because everybody saw someone different,
Mm-hmm.
dressed in. One person's like, oh, brown, he had curly brown hair. Well, Richard Allen's bald,
Mm-hmm.
so that's not really, someone said he's tall. He's not tall
Mm-hmm.
at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it was there were so many things, so many head scratching moments at that trial.
Are you going to be here with us at Fox and CBS 4 for that, or will you be at NBC covering that?
I don't know. It depends on how long it takes, I
Okay.
guess, right?
Okay.
Maybe I'll be. Hey, no offense to everybody here, but if I'm at NBC, I won't be mad about it.
Just don't forget about the little people
That's
when
right.
when you're at
How
network.
could I?
That
That was such a process. I could never forget that, even
well,
if I wanted to.
you were the man for the job. Like I said, that's where it's like that's not me. That's not my speed. Now
Yeah.
I could do it. If you sent me in there, I could absolutely do it.
It's not. It's hard. It kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Working at that pace,
Mhm.
and for 3 weeks or
Mhm.
3 or 4 weeks. I can't. We had jury selection. We had to go to Fort Wayne for that. I mean, that was a tough.
Yeah.
That was a tough.
That was work.
Month for me.
That was
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, Max. Well, hey, we went way over time. We actually did like a whole hour, which
Oh.
wasn't my intent.
Okay.
But it's fine because I was gonna have to fill it with something else. But we had such an interesting
We
conversation
did. I thought it was interesting.
that boom, yeah, that's how it works when you got good people in here
That's right.
to make an easy show. So Max, you anchor the 6 o'clock, and now the 6:30
And now the 6:30 on this
on the app,
Yep.
and the 11
And the
on
11.
CBS.
Yep. Saturday, Sunday.
Saturday, Sunday, and then you'll see him on both stations. I believe you're Monday, Tuesday,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, because your weekend is Thursday,
Thursday,
Friday.
Friday. So.
The life of TV.
Yeah.
All right, Max Lewis, you are awesome. Thanks for all the work that you do for the station. You make
Yeah.
us all proud. You make us look good. And you make the rest of us, I don't have a Murrow, but The state, I guess the Murrow goes to the
Goes
station.
to the station,
So I can
technically.
say I'm at a Murrow
You're a
award-winning station,
exactly.
although I had nothing to do with it. That's
Hey,
all
team.
you.
It's TV is a team effort for
Yes,
sure.
I
So,
worked here at the time, so
yeah,
that's all.
exactly.
That's all that matters. Hey, more Fox 59 tonight's coming your way every night at 8 o'clock right here on Fox 59 Now. We appreciate you watching. Join me on the weekend, Sunday mornings for my radio show Open Lines on 106.7 WTLC and Hot 100.9, and then more conversations like this every night at 8 o'clock. I'm Cameron Riddle. Have a great night.